Hello, I'm Kevin Hayward from KSH Safety Services. Can you guess what my middle name is? Safety is my middle name, and that's the name of my podcast.
KSH, KSH, KSH.
Hi, I'm Chris Holme from H&S Environment Services, and you're watching Safety is My Middle Name.
You've already been introduced to our guest today, so Chris, tell me a bit about yourself.
Morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me on. I'm the Water Hygiene Manager at H&S Environment. We provide Legionella control across hundreds of properties across the UK. I fell into the business. I used to work in a child nursery for 5 years.
Slightly different.
Very. Something I really loved. Unfortunately, the funding was cut and I'd just bought a house, and I somehow took a job working for a company in Wigan called GMS, and they gave me the footing and the knowledge to be able to do this job, and started off at the bottom, just going around taking temperatures, eventually moved on to doing risk assessments, and they were really good to me, but I got an opportunity to move to another company called QES. They were based in Sandbach, and my role there was risk assessor. I had a boss there called Tim who expected a lot from his staff, and he had to work all over the country, but he was a very good boss. He'd been there and he'd done it himself for 15 years, and then he set up his own company. So it was great to work for. And then in 2021, Acorn, based in Swinton, they decided they wanted to get involved in the water industry. So after meeting the bosses there, I've come along and set this up. We started off with nothing, with no clients, just an opportunity. And 4 years later, we have just under 400 properties that we look after on a monthly basis. That we go as high as Glasgow every month, and we go as far down as the Isle of Wight and sort of everywhere in between. And we have 4 engineers that are currently working on that, and yeah, that's...
They're all called Chris, aren't
they? We have 3 Chris's. I promise that's not a requirement for the job. It worked out that way. Our newest member, Deanie, comes in a couple of weeks, and he's allowing us to expand from the services that we've been doing for the last 4 years to other areas now, and it's exciting for us and for the company.
Excellent, good. So why is Legionella and water important?
Well, it's part of everyone's life every day. Most people get up in the morning, they'll have a shower, they'll have coffee, a drink, and then when you're on your holidays and that, you're in a pool, you're in a jacuzzi. Myself personally, I won't go in a jacuzzi. Kind of like a human soup of lovely breeding temperature for bacteria, so I tend to avoid them. But yeah, water's a part of everyone's life every day, and it's great to be a part of making sure it's at least safe in the properties that we look after.
Good. Is it a legal requirement?
Yes, yeah. So any business that has sort of 5 or more employees, as an absolute minimum, they need to have a Legionella risk assessment, and that's going to look at all the water services in a property, domestic and maybe some closed systems or some higher risk systems. And from that risk assessment, you're then going to put your management controls in place, and then all your monitoring then comes on from that. And it's a process that is continuous throughout the year. Unfortunately, we still have companies that will get us in 1 year to do a risk assessment, and we go back the next year and there's still only that risk assessment in place. And it's trying to make them aware of their legal requirements, and we will speak to them and let them know that this is a minimum, this is what you need to do moving forward. You can do it yourself, the monitoring and things like that, but you need to invest in people and in staff, and that's giving them the correct training courses and ensuring that they're competent in the job and that everything's being recorded properly.
Yeah.
I like to tell people that it is a big responsibility, and if someone's going to have that responsibility, I can take that responsibility for you. if someone's going to go to jail, it might as well be me rather than you. So it ensures that I do my job properly every day.
Hopefully you'll never do that.
Hopefully not, no. So.
Just going back a little step, there's probably people listening and watching this podcast that have no idea what Legionella is, what it can do to you. Is there a bit of background as to why the law came in the first place?
Yes, we had the incidents up in Barrow, which led to reviews, and then it's led to us having lots and lots of technical documents and ACOP L8, which sets out the issues with Legionella and what it is that you need to do. And then from that, we have technical documents, the HSG guidance and British standards, which then go into more depth of how you should be doing this.
Yeah. So a layperson might not actually know what can it do to you as an individual if you catch Legionnaire's disease.
Okay, so Legionnaire's it's a waterborne bacteria, and you will get it through breathing in droplets, which is why things that create a spray, showers, jacuzzis, those are the real big things. And if you were to unfortunately catch Legionnaire's disease, then you're looking at a pneumonia type illness. So you're looking at raised temperatures, nausea, short of breath. So yeah.
How common is it?
Common, not. Only 10% of cases are actually correctly identified as Legionnaire's disease. The majority is still being classed as a pneumonia. The testing's not always there for it.
So you go into a business, you're going to do a risk assessment with them. What does that involve?
So before a risk assessment even takes place, we send out a management structure, because that's very important, that we identify who's looking after this building, and have they made the right people responsible for looking after. So I'll send that out, and then I go out onto a building site, and I'll speak to all those people that's on that list and make sure that they're trained and that they know what it is that they're doing. And then over the course of, depending on the size of the building, a few hours to a couple of days, I'm going to make my way around, and I'm checking every room. I'm lifting ceiling tiles and taking those boards off, and we're looking at pipe work. We're looking for those little hidden things that people in buildings don't consider an issue, but I know are, like the shower that's never used, the shower that's now used as a storage place, and it will be full of boxes. Sinks that are just hidden away, things that have been boxed in over time. We're looking for those things that are going to cause an issue.
I bet you've come across some dodgy places in the time as well, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. Office blocks, yeah, they're never great because they're continuously changing. So you will come across just areas that people don't use anymore, or they think that it's okay to just forget about that room over there.
So what else do you do other than the risk assessment? You said you take samples. Is that temperature? Is that samples that go to a lab, or what?
Yeah, so during a risk assessment, first of all, we're creating an asset register so we know what is on that property, so that moving forward, everywhere's getting looked at. Temperature control is the preferred method for Legionella control in a lot of buildings. So we're making sure that any stored water, hot stored water is where it needs to be, which is stored above 60 degrees. And cold water, whether it's mains or a tank, is under 20. So we're taking temperatures throughout the building. These temperatures can be absolutely correct, and the water might look nice and crystal clear. It doesn't tell the whole story. So as part of our risk assessment, we will take water samples from those areas that we deem as high risk, and that way they'll go to UCAS accredited labs, and it allows us to build up a picture of the property. Over the course of the year, we don't tend to just offer a one-off sampling visit. We will continuously monitor the site with a building supervisor, and if they identify an area that's no longer used, they can start their flushing regime, or we can go and take some water samples. So it's a continuous process.
Mm-hmm. I know you work all over the country. You've worked in Shetland, for example, and I can't imagine there being many labs in Shetland, for example.
No.
So have you got a time limit to get the samples to the lab? And
Yeah, so we aim for 6 hours to get the samples back to the lab. We do use couriers. There are certain labs that have drop-off points throughout the UK. The one that we use has over 40 different places, and they are all collected on the same day that they have collections every day. So it does ensure the sample gets to the lab in the correct time, and that way it's still viable.
yeah, is it just Legionella they check for? Is there other things that are in the water as well?
No, we'll carry out a Legionella screen, but we will also carry out a microbiological screen on a water sample as well, and that allows us to check for TBCs, E. coli, coliform, Pseudomonas, some of the other interesting
All
things.
sound very nasty.
Yes, very much so.
I can imagine. So you've got the results and so on. One of them is proving negative. You've got, or positive, should I say, to Legionella.
Mm-hmm.
What's the process?
So the labs that we use, they will give us an indication. So they're continuously monitoring the samples that are taken, and we will get a report. 4 or 5 days in, they'll tell us that there's something there, and then we'll get confirmation. It's usually sort of 12 days after the sample. It's a 10-day test, so we will find out sort of on about day 12. At that point, we're contacting the client via email, via phone call. I want contact with that person today. I'm letting them know there's a failure. I'm telling them what part of the building it's in, and then we're gonna look at ways to eradicate that issue.
Yeah. So in those 10 days, people could be at risk.
Oh yes, yeah. Only looking back, yes. If you can have a small count, but that's 10 days prior when you took that sample. And Legionella is a bug that multiplies every 20 minutes. So one bacteria is 1 million 24 hours later, and if you can times that by 10, that number can be gigantic.
So is there anything that you can ask the employer to do immediately because you've got suspicions because it's going to the lab? Or
some people will instantly go, I'm not going to use that sink. I'm going to keep away, put a barrier. I wouldn't do that. I'm continuously flushing, because if you turn off that tap, you're allowing the water in there to become stagnant, to heat up, to continue to multiply, and it'll start making its way back into the system. So you can create a bigger issue by taking it out straight away. I would be flushing that on a daily basis to keep it moving.
Don't blame. I would imagine your industry is quite highly regulated. I'm assuming you're audited and checked regularly, are you?
Very much so. So ACON is a part of the Legionella Control Association. We have been for the last 4 years. Those guys, they come in on an annual basis. We conduct our own internal audits once a year, but that process is broken down over every month of the year. We're constantly looking at the legislation, and we're looking at the code of conduct, and we're ensuring that our operatives are carrying out the work to those standards. And then on an annual basis, we've got the LCA coming in. They've just been in February, and for us, we have to complete the audit form. And this year it was just a short 922 questions that was required, plus all the evidence that goes with that. So we don't leave it to February. It's a continuous audit throughout the year. I'm looking at people's work every day. Why haven't we highlighted this issue? This needs to go to a client. What's the end result? What have we come to? And it allows us to build up all that evidence throughout the year.
So you mentioned earlier specific training that companies must do, and certain individuals within those companies. Can you just explain what you're expected to do as an employer?
Yeah, so as part of the management structure, we're looking for a duty holder, a responsible person, a deputy if that person's not there, and then a person that's going to carry out those checks on site. And then at that point, I'm looking at training records. A lot of companies they'll tack on a Legionella course on their sort of their annual HR training. We encourage them to we've used yourself previously, which is great. We know that you offer some great courses. Allows them to get the CPD points accredited. We need to see people that have actually completed an accredited course. So, and then at that point, you would then monitor that person in the role, make sure that they know what they're doing. If I can give you just one example, a hotel that we looked after a couple of years ago, I asked the caretaker about his training, and he produced a wonderful training certificate, and then he's very proudly showed me his logbook, and it was full of temperatures, which was great. Unfortunately, every single temperature was out of specification because he'd done the training course, which it ticked a box, but he wasn't competent to do the role. And it was a shame because the hotels are a really big issue, and unbeknownst to them, they were actually creating an issue by not having the right person doing the role. Yeah.
You mentioned hotels. I did a Legionella course myself, and I don't know how true or not it is, or whether it's a bit of banter, but he actually mentioned to me on the course that there's only one group of individuals that have never caught Legionella.
Really?
And that's teenage girls.
Oh, wow, okay.
Whether that's true or not, or it was part of the banter on the course, I have no idea. But it might be worth sending in, if you're going on holiday this summer, to be the beginning of the year, it might be worth sending in your teenage girls to turn the taps on before you start.
Yeah, I have 2 teenage daughters, so I think they might be the guinea pigs on that.
Or whether that's child abuse or not, I have no idea. But there we go. I can imagine there's a lot of ignorance from employers about what they have to do. And even after you've come in, I can imagine some places that risk assessment sits on a shelf and they ignore it and so forth. What sort of things have you got to say to them?
Yeah, I have properties and I've gone in and I've asked for the logbook. Can I see your previous risk assessment that I've completed the year before? And they'll go, oh, it's in that envelope over there. And it's still in the envelope that I've sent to them. So again, it comes down to competency. You weren't competent enough to open that up and look at it and read it, study it, and because you have a role to make this building compliant, and it's falling down at the first stage. So.
Yeah, I bet your job's quite fun travelling around the country, or do you find it quite difficult sometimes?
I do quite like driving.
It's a good job.
Yeah, I have some kind of crazy days. I have a day that involves the top of the Isle of Wight and London, days that will involve Glasgow and Newcastle and Leeds, and it is just part of the job. But it has allowed me to see some nice part. I think I've seen everything in this country, but never really stopped to appreciate it, unfortunately. But yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. So do different parts of the country or different companies treat it differently, or?
I can only speak for the companies that I've worked for, and thankfully those 2 companies were very good when it came to the compliance side. That there's no shortcuts. They invested the right amount of money into people's training and to the data capture software that they use. So yeah, I can only speak for those, but they've been pretty good.
The reason I'm asking that is in a previous job before I went self-employed, I was travelled all over the country, and it was the remote ones that were the hardest to deal with because they were in the middle of nowhere and they thought they were well hidden and out of the way.
Oh, yeah, you will come across that. A lot of properties, they look at the big 2. They look at gas and they'll look at electric, and those reports will always be looked after properly. And I think a little bit more is needed to emphasise that, water's pretty important. You mean you're drinking it?
Breathe it in sometimes in the shower.
You're having a shower, and do you know what you put in your face underneath? It's... I'm I'm a bit of a weirdo with things like this, so I know I'm not the only one that does this. When I stay in a hotel, I did it on Tuesday night. I get to my hotel and I will unpack my my cleaning gear, and the shower head and hose will come off and it will go into a sink with the chemical, just because you don't know that everything's been done as it should.
Well, that's very true. I mean, I stay in hotels every now and then, and whenever I go to a hotel, I read the back of the door when I put my bag down and follow it to the nearest exit so I know where I am in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's I think it's hazard of the job, isn't it, that we become completely addicted to it?
Yeah, I think you see these issues in locations. I will drive some past places and I'll say to my partner, it's like, oh, that's my building. I look after this place. Or we can be on holiday and I'm sat there in Greece in 40-degree heat and I'm looking at tanks on roof spaces, and it's like things that aren't allowed in the UK, and it's like it's a plastic tank in 40-degree heat, and it makes me think, oh my God, what's going on there? But yeah, it's a curse of the job at times, and I'm sure you appreciate.
Are the tanks worse in the middle of nowhere than they are in maybe cities, or is there no difference?
Oh, I would say that comes down to who's running the building. Yeah. I have clean tanks on top of hills, surrounded by sheep, that are still nice and clean, but they still have an annual tank clean. And I have clean tanks in the middle of Manchester and Liverpool and London, and they're absolutely disgusting. It's every tank and every situation is different.
Yeah, you mentioned that you go up into lofts, up into roof spaces and all sorts of things like that as well. Have you ever thought, no, there's no way I can do that? Go there. I've got to say no, I can't do it because of where the tank's located.
Only on a couple of occasions, and that will be down to the structure of the roof. Before we do any assessment, I'm looking at that asbestos register, and if there's asbestos tiles under, and if I can't make the crawl boards work, I just don't think it's safe. I won't send myself up, and I certainly won't send any employees up. It'd be up to a building to make sure we've got safe access.
Yeah. So you basically say no. So what can an employer do if they're in that situation?
So if we say no, it's highlighted in the risk assessment, and we're going to say we've not been able to get to these places. You need to make access. We need safe access. I need crawl boards. There should be a ladder in this situation. We need lighting. At that point, it becomes the client's responsibility. We've made our recommendation. At that point, it's up to them now.
Yeah, you mentioned going back to the sampling a little bit. I bet you've seen some really, really disgusting, horrible stuff.
Yes. I've come across tanks that are full of snails. I unfortunately found a tank with a cat in it. Water systems, especially water systems that don't move a lot. The water, if it's an oversized tank, becomes very stagnant very quickly. So we're looking at slimes and biofilms and horrible things like that. Tanks that have not been looked at for years. We're still coming across this. We're over 20 years now into there being a lot of guidance, and we're still coming across steel tanks that are all rusted and completely covered in debris on the bottom. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It still happens.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've passed your details on to quite a number of my clients in the past, and you've done the same the other way as well. And I think we work quite well together doing that. What sort of other issues do you come across that you think they need to do something about that, and maybe don't? Not necessarily Legionella. I know your company does pest control as an example.
Yes.
Do you come across something while you're crawling in these boards or whatever that they probably don't know about, and tell them that they need to get that looked at as well?
So with water, we're continuously getting changes. It's usually the 1st of July every year. We'll get a new set of questions, or this has been added. And this last year, there's been a real emphasis on the evidence of pest in and around tank areas in roof spaces. They're asking, is there evidence of vermin? Is there droppings? Is there pigeon muck? Is there feathers on top of the tank? Anything that can contaminate that tank that we're being asked about now. And as we are a pest control company first, it has allowed us to become a multi-service company to clients because of these new changes.
It makes perfect sense, really, then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is it a competitive industry that you're in?
Extremely. There are over 2,000 registered water companies on the Legionella Control Association's website, and pretty much all of those offer services in the Northwest. So we're based just outside of Manchester, and everyone's in there. Everyone's scratching for the same work, and some companies, they are huge, they're massive, and there are some really small, great one-man bands out there that are also offering a great service, and we're in there. We're doing really well 4 years in. Yeah.
So with it being a saturated industry, as you say, what makes Acorn stand out?
We react to our customers, potential customers. We're available through the website. We have companies that take our phone calls, which allows us to get straight out to a client. The great thing for me with Acorn is we're not too big. We work hard on the water side, on the pest side. Since I've started here, I mean, you've seen me. I'm in that office from 5 o'clock in the morning. I leave between 5 and 6 in the evening. It gets every little bit of me every day to enable it to grow. A lot of bigger companies, clients just become a number. Not for me. It's great that we're 4 years in and I can pretty much tell you everything about all the clients that we have. I can tell you about the buildings and that, and it's something that we do across the company now. We used to do a lot of other services, and around 12 months ago we stripped it back. We were probably a little bit too stretched, and we've really focused on the pest control and on the water. We've put some really good building blocks in, and 12 months later we're doing really well now.
That's good.
Yeah. So essentially we're small enough to care about all of our clients, but we're big enough to really help them out and keep them compliant and safe.
That's brilliant, that. And if anybody wants to contact Chris or the team, the details will be on at the end of the podcast. Just one final question. If you had any message for any employer that doesn't do anything relating to water hygiene or Legionella, what would it be? I would be asking myself why I've not got something in place. If I've got a building full of people, I want to make sure that one, they're in work every day. I want to give them safe drinking water. Those guys that are coming in on the bikes and helping the planet, have they got a shower that's safe? Is it fed by water that is safe? Get that risk assessment, get your programme in place for continuous monitoring moving forward. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. I've really enjoyed that conversation.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Really enlightening as well. As Chris mentioned earlier on, I have a training course, an online training course, Basic Legionella Management, which covers everything that's required. You can get CPD points. Just visit kshsafety.com and follow the link to online training and you'll find it. That's the end of Series 1 of the podcast. Another series, you'll be glad to know, will be available in a few weeks' time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care.